Hello and welcome to our third session of the series on shared reading. I'm Debra Crouch, and I'm really excited to be able to share some ideas today on ways that we can extend the shared reading experience into writing, really specifically for our emergent and early readers and writers. So today, what we're going to do is think about the different ideas of what we can do after we share the book with kids. So once the book is known to children, what we can do to support them for learning through writing. And so we're going to look at modeled writing, we're going to look at shared writing, and think about some extensions that we can do, all in supporting kids to apply foundational skills. The definition that we have already seen in our other two webinar sessions comes from Dr. Brenda Parks, and it thinks about shared reading being a collaborative learning activity that emulates and builds from the child's experience with bedtime stories, with a goal to provide children with this enjoyable reading experience and introduce them to a variety of authors and illustrators in the way that these communicators craft meaning. All with that goal, too, of enticing them to want to be readers themselves. Today, as we zoom in on these kinds of revisits for writing, we're going to be really digging into the ways that these communicators craft meaning and use that as a way of supporting children to not only want to be readers themselves, but also to want to be writers. And so I began this by thinking a lot about Margaret Mooney and Terrell Young's thinking around what kinds of writing do children need to be exposed to in order to support them to take on all of this work for themselves. They talked to us about the idea of writing for children. And one of the things, when we're trying to support our young readers and our writers, and really why we would think about this kind of support, we want to show the benefits of a skilled writer in action. This is helping children understand the purposes of writing and understanding the why behind why we might do some of that work. They also talked to us in their book, Caught in the Spell of Reading and Writing, about writing with children. This would be an opportunity for helping children to understand how a writer communicates their meanings, how it is that they're going about the what, and supporting children to begin to participate in the writing act. There's also going to be writing by children, so where we give kids these opportunities to use and apply what was learned in one setting in other contexts. So across your day, there's going to be opportunities for using writing workshop these different writing approaches, and that could be during writing workshop. And so as you're thinking about how you're supporting kids to respond to text, sometimes we think about different responses, and writing becomes about your writing about your comprehension of a text. But what we want to think about in this model is thinking about how we support kids to understand how writers are crafting their texts so that kids can go out and craft those texts to communicate their own messages. So, for example, during writing workshop time, a teacher might be demonstrating, where writers get their ideas and using a shared reading text to show them how, to come up with ideas. And then thinking about how to use the structure of another author's text so that you can see different ways to organize your ideas. A teacher might also, as they're writing for and with students, might be demonstrating, how to think about different ways to say your ideas, different ways to, get your ideas onto paper, supporting kids to understand that, they can do the illustrations first or do the writing first or vice versa, whichever they choose. And then supporting kids to learn to reread their writing, to look at what they've written for clarity. So one of the things that I always try and think about is that I want to provide lots of opportunities for kids to experience writing for, writing with, and writing by across the day. Connected specifically to shared reading, one of the things that we've talked about in our other two webinars is that books go through a process of use. Our first readings are about meaning. Our second readings are about deepening that meaning and then, studying vocabulary, looking for language structures, things like that. Then on these multiple returns to the book that we do, We offer children an opportunity and to look at different ways the text has been structured. And so the responses to reading and writing can be those kinds of responses that support kids to understand the writing process, as well as creating innovations on text. So that's another way that we might have kids return to the book. So let's think specifically about some of the opportunities for learning about writing as we're working within the context of shared reading. So the first thing that I want to share with you is some work that some kids were doing at Kimbrough Elementary School, and we're looking at our group of first graders. We had been using a book called A Pizza for Bear for several days. A lovely little story about how Bear he's eating, and then he smells pizza through the trees, and he invades a campsite and begins to chow down on some yummy pepperoni pizza. And so one of the things that we had worked with that book for multiple days, and one of the things I wanted to do was to provide some opportunities to use this book for some writing for and writing by children. So in the video, you're going to see we take the end of this book where the bear scampers off into the forest, and we think about what else we might write. What could we write as something else that happens to this character? So we're looking at the first grade. I always sort of think about, how do I support kids to engage in the kinds of things that authors do? And sometimes authors take advantage of a particular character who speaks to them and in one book and begins to write more about them. And so that's what we're going to take a look at, is how these children are extending their meaning through writing. And so as you watch this video coming up, be thinking about, what does that writing lesson look like, sound like, and feel like for the students and for the teacher.
So we're going to do a little bit of writing about our book, A Pizza for Bear, and I'm going to write a sentence about the end. Actually, after the end. So here at the end, after Bear leaves, he goes up the path and through the woods, away Bear scampers feeling good. I wonder what he's going to do later at night. Hands all down, because I'm going to be doing some thinking. I'm just going to show you some of my thinking with this. So if there was another part of the book, I think it might be about what Bear's doing at night. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to think, you see these other bears. I'm going to write about this bear, because this bear is scampering away. Scampering means he's running away really quickly. And I'm going to think and use my imagination to think about what Bear might do at the end of his day. So let's think about this. What might a bear do at the end of his day?
Go to bed.
He might go to bed.
He might eat again.
He might eat some more. What else could he do, Nicholas?
He might go play outside.
He could. What else could he do, Kayleen?
Maybe a wolf might eat his leg.
Could be. What are you thinking, Corinna?
He might find more pizza.
He might. So you've given me some ideas. Hands all down. So I think I'm going to write about Bear going to sleep. So I'm going to write Bear sleeps. Now let's think. Where would a bear sleep?
In the den. In the den.
In his den.
Or in a cave.
In a cave? I think I'll use that word den. So I think I'm going to write Bear sleeps in his den. Okay? So I'm going to start my first sentence up here. Now, I have to start my sentence with a capital. That helps my reader know that it is the beginning of a sentence.
So we copy?
Nope, you're not going to be copying mine. You're going to be doing your own writing. So I'm going to write Bear, leave a space, and I'm going to write my word sleeps. Bear sleeps in his den. Bear sleeps in his den. Now, I let my reader know it was the beginning of my sentence with a capital. I want to let my readers know that I finished my sentence.
That period.
That's what a period does, Natalie. You know that exactly. Bear sleeps in his den. What else could I add to my writing about Bear sleeping in his den? You know what? I'm closing my eyes and I'm imagining a bear sleeping in his den.
What's a den?
A den is the name of, it's a special name for his cave or his space where he sleeps. Yeah, Bear sleeps in his den. I'm imagining that Bear is curled up in a ball. So I'm going to add that. Bear sleeps in his den. So it's a new sentence. I let my readers know that I'm starting. Nope. He curls into a ball. And now I'm finished with that idea. So put another period. I wonder if Bear snores.
No, they don't.
In my story, he snores. I think I'm going to make him snore. Bear sleeps in his den. Now, when I reread it, it helps me to think about what I've got so far and what comes next. Bear sleeps in his den. He curls into a ball.
And
Bear snores loudly. And I'll put another period some in. So I've written 3 sentences there about Bear and what he's going to do. Jacob, can you turn around, sweetie? What he's going to do, I've written 3 sentences, and that tells us what Bear is going to do in my story. If I were writing another page or 2 into the story, what do you think you might have Bear do if you were writing more of that story? What will Bear do in your story? So think for a moment. What might Bear do? Some of you mentioned he might eat more pizza. What are you thinking, Balti? Are you imagining what he might do? Yeah. What might he do? Are you ready to think about that and draw and illustrate that?
Yeah.
Why don't you turn and talk to your partners? What do you think Bear's going to do in your story? Okay, go ahead and turn back to me. So you've got some ideas about what you think Bear might do after he goes scampering away. So up the path and through the woods, away Bear scampers feeling good. What might your next pages in the story, if you were adding some more pages, what might Bear do in your story?
Go to bed.
Okay, so he might go to bed in your story. He might find more pizza. He might go get some more berries. That's your choice because you're going to be the writer. Hold your thinking. You're going to put it onto paper for me. You're going to draw an illustration and write your words. Okay. Can I ask you if you would write your words first and then draw your illustration? Would that be all right? Okay.
So let's think about some of the key observations that we can make from this lesson. Now, again, if you were with me, this is when I would have you turn and talk to your partners. But since you're not, I'm going to go ahead and call out some of the things that I was noticing. So one of the things I think that's very powerful for these students is that they ask a lot of clarifying questions. If they're not sure about the task, if they're not sure about vocabulary. For example, when they ask about den, one of the things that these kids really do is speak up and ask clarifying questions. That's really important. They really interact with the ideas being shared. One of the things that I loved about this group of students was how much that they just, whatever I asked for them to join me in, they were very excited about, being able to participate and interact with the different ideas. They're really flexible as they contribute multiple ideas as well. One of the things that they do a lot is begin their ideas with the word maybe. Because one of the things I think that's so powerful about that is it's that kind of language that shows that they've got flexibility in their thinking. One of the other pieces that they do is do this, what we would refer to as oral rehearsal, where they turn and they discuss their writing ideas with their partners. They're really enthusiastic about being able to share their ideas about what they might choose to write about as they went back to write independently. And one of the things about them is they all got started so quickly, just they all had ideas. I think that oral rehearsal really supported them to have thought through what they wanted to say in their writing, and then they wrote with confidence. The other thing I think that's so powerful is that they use really multiple strategies to get their ideas down onto paper. All of them went back to write and then illustrated their stories as I'd asked for them to try out. You could see evidence in the video of them rereading their writing to add more, and they were listening for sounds when they were spelling unknown words. One of the things that I tried to do in the lesson was to make sure I was using enough academic language, talking about endings and sentences, and I recognize that I use sentence instead of story at one point, but one of the things I try and think a lot about is trying to use some of the language for what writers do within the work. I modeled my thinking about some ideas that I could have. So even though the children offered me ideas, what I showed them was that I can hear lots of different ideas, but that the writer has to decide what it is that they're going to write. And that offers me the opportunity to choose some of the ideas from those that they have contributed. I model skills and context here, so I can model and think about, why we would use capitals, why we use space, why we use different punctuation at the end. As well as modeling rereading to support yourself in writing. That's one of the pieces I think that sometimes we show children writing that's already produced, but the actual fact of writing in front of them helps you to be able to model the actual process that you're going through as you are writing with them. One of the things I thought that was so lovely was looking at the students' writing after they had completed that. This is one from Corinna. She's one of the little girls that we saw right there at the end of the video. And the things that I was so excited about was that you could see evidence of the rereading and the work that they were doing through the approximations that they were making. So here in these two approximations, you can see that she's working on spelling. So you know that she's really thinking and looking. And then as she worked here with pizza, she decided that she did not want that period to be in that place. And so X'd it out there, or perhaps she went back in and began to think more about it as she kept reading it. Edwin doing the same kind of thing as he was working on different spellings here. And I think one of the things that's really powerful in this classroom was that the children just learned to X things out and move on. And as a teacher, what that shows me is it keeps the evidence of thinking. So I don't worry so much about it not looking so pretty as much as I worry that sometimes if kids erase things that we're going to lose that thinking or that evidence of the thinking for us when we weren't there in the creation. So I actually have kids, I teach kids how to do that kind of, Xing things out instead of erasing and changing things. So as we look at this, I want to also share another shared writing lesson with some kindergartners that we'll see. In the modeled writing that you just saw, I did my lesson first and then had the kids go write. In the lesson that we're going to see right now, I had the kids write first and then I did a lesson. So the kids had written about their favorite pets and given their reasons for thinking this was the best pet for them. So Larissa showed us, when she says, "I like my dog, he is soft." And then Juan wrote, "My fish is the good pet because you can feed the fish." And the student wrote, "I think dogs are the best pets because you can play with them and they are really soft." Santiago with, "My dog is the cutest dog because he is cute." And through looking at the students' writing, I'm able to see the kinds of things that they already do. These children really understood a lot about thinking about looking at reasons or giving an opinion and giving reasons. And so one of the things I had to figure out from looking at the writing were what was some of the possibilities for some writing lessons. In our second webinar, we saw a lesson where I was helping them think about using spelling as it looks as a strategy for checking their work. In this particular lesson, we were doing some writing about ideas afterwards and thinking about the different kinds of punctuation and different kinds of skills that I could model and demonstrate. So the same group of kindergartners that we've seen in other video, and I'm modeling coming back into the text, and the kids are taking a bit more ownership in this and helping me out with this. So we've moved into a more writing with as opposed to writing for kind of structure. So Which Pet is Best is the book that we're using. So just a quick reminder of the book pages. This book has a pattern where a child would say, I think this is the best pet, and give their reasons. Another child would say, this is not a good pet for me, and give their reasons. And so at the end, it asks us, what do you think, which pet do you like the best? And so what I did at this point was I chose to write my story about what animal I felt was the best pet for me, to extend that meaning through writing. So as we watch, be thinking about what you notice happening in the lesson. Oop. Somehow or other we got off. Start that one more time.
One of the things at the end of our book, it asks us a question here. Which pet is best? That's the title of our book. And then when we went to the end of our book, they ask a question. Which pet do you like the best?
No.
And you know how you turned and talked to your partners about that and talked about which pet you thought was best? I didn't get to tell which pet I thought was best. So I think I'm going to write about a pet that I think is the best pet. So, let me think. I have to tell you, I have the cutest kitty cat. I have the cutest kitty cat. He is. He's so sweet, we named him Precious. Okay? So I'm going to think about that. I think cats are the best pet. I do want to tell that he's cuddly, because he is a very cuddly kitty cat. And he has really, really soft fur. So when I pet him, his fur is so soft. What would you like to know about my cat? Eleanor, what would you like to know? No, he's completely black. All of his fur is black. Yeah. What else do you want to know about my cat? Even his tummy's black.
Does he sleep too much?
He sleeps a lot. You know where he sleeps during the daytime?
Where?
He sleeps on my pillow.
What?
When I get up, that's where he likes to sleep. Curled up in a little ball on top of my pillow. That's what he likes to do. So you can see why I think cats are the best pets, because he's so sweet and cuddly. He sleeps on my pillow, and he's got very, very soft fur. I'm going to put all that in my writing. But the first thing I have to tell is what I think. What's my opinion? You know how we talked about opinions? It means what do we think? I think cats are the best pet. So I think I'm going to use that as my first sentence. I think cats are the best pets. I could say, let's see, I could say my favorite pet is a cat. I could say that. What else could I say, do you think, to start my sentence? What could I say, Cindy?
Your cat is cuddly.
I could start off telling about him. I want to tell my opinion first. Will you hold that idea for me? Because I'm going to put that one in a little bit later. So let me get started here. I think cats are the best pet. Okay? So that's how I'm going to start. I have to leave my space here. You know, when I write, we leave spaces between our words.
Yes.
I think, I'm going to leave another space. Cats. Do you know how to write the word cats? Is it in your brain? Tell me, just everybody say it for me. I think cats are, so I'm going to write the word are. Do you know that word already? A-R-E? One of the things is when we write, one of the things we want to do is go back and read it and make sure it says what we say.
Cat.
I think cat are, does that sound right? Listen, I think cat are,
The best.
or should I say, I think cats are.
The best.
Amy, you thought I needed cats? Can you read a sentence and make it sound right so I can fix it? I think cats are. So what am I missing right here?
S.
My S. Yeah, and sometimes we write real fast and we don't notice it. So we reread what we write and that helps us to know what to put next. I think cats are the, you know THE, that's a pretty easy one, huh? Best. Best. You listened for sounds, didn't you, Emilio? I leave a space. Best.
S.
And then I got to write pets. Now, can you find the word pet on there?
P-E-A-T.
P-E-T. Now let's see if it says what I want it to say. I think cats are the best pet. Should I say pet or pets? I think cats are the best pet.
Pet.
Yeah, I just need it just pet. So how do I let a reader know that I'm finished with that sentence?
Period.
That's what a period does. Yep, lets the reader know I'm done. I think cats are the best pet. Now, I just told my opinion. Now I've got to give my reasons. I got to tell you why I think. And Cindy, you helped me out already with a sentence. What was that idea you said that I should say about my cat?
Your cat is cuddly.
I could say, my cat is cuddly. So I've got to start a new sentence. How do I let my reader know it's a new sentence?
Because.
I put a capital, right? Do you know that one?
Period.
Yep. I put a period. That tells a reader it's the end of my sentence. A capital tells a reader it's the first part of my sentence, the first word. My cat is cuddly. Should I say anything else? My cat is cuddly.
And soft.
And soft, I could put that there, couldn't I? So I'm not finished quite yet, so I'm not going to put a period yet. I'm going to write the next part. And soft. Should I tell about him sleeping on my pillows?
Yeah.
Would that be a good thing to tell? Well, how can I say that? He
likes to sleep on your pillow.
Chelsea just gave me a great way to say it. He likes to sleep on my pillows. Would that be good? That sound good? All right. So I've let my reader know I'm finished with my soft and cuddly idea. Now I'm going to write the idea about the pillows. I let my reader know it's a new sentence. I'm going to put a capital. He likes to sleep on my pillows. So see what I did? I told what I thought. I think cats are the best pet. And now I've got two reasons. My cat is cuddly and soft. He likes to sleep on my pillows. There's my two reasons for my opinion.
S on the cat.
Where do I need an S? Can you tell me where? Right here?
Yeah.
So I'm going to say, my cat is cuddly, or my cat is cuddly.
My cat is cuddly.
Yeah, I just need the T right there. I don't need an S on that one because I'm just saying for one cat.
Oh.
I'm glad that you read that and thought, though, because when a reader reads it and checks, sometimes you go, I wonder, does it need it? And you ask me. And then we checked it and read it together, and we checked ourselves. I think cats are the best pet. My cat is cuddly and soft. He likes to sleep on my pillows. I have a capital at the beginning of every one of my sentences. That lets my readers know it's a new sentence. And I put a period at the end of each one to tell my reader that my sentence is finished. And it helps my reader know.
So again, if I were with you, this would be your time to turn and talk. But let's think about some of the key observations from this video. These kids, I love this group of children because they were so comfortable talking and asking questions. And that's one of the things that I try and think a lot about is how do I support kids to interact and think and talk together as we write together. They really interacted with the ideas being shared and were able to ask me questions about my cat and things that they were wondering. And were able to contribute ideas and wordings on how to say their ideas. We also, they have a lot of known words. These kids had a whole bank of known words that they could contribute, like cat and R and other words like this. And so they were sharing and helping me out with the spelling. Again, my role is using academic language, question, title, opinion, reasons, talking about sentences and, periods and capitals and all of that different work about punctuation. Once the children contributed ideas, then one of the things that I wanted to help them to think about were some different language choices. And because many of the children in this classroom were learning English as a second language, one of the things that I would try and offer were different ways to say the same idea. And so you saw at the beginning when I said, well, I could say it this way, or I could say it this way, because what we want is for kids to develop flexibility with language. Another opportunity is for when we're thinking about plurals and things like that, to offer it to children in the two different ways, in the conventional way as well as in maybe a non-conventional way. And it offers kids the opportunity to hear the two, and if it's in their receptive language, they'll be able to identify in a more conventional way. So as we reread and reread, we were thinking about the language and how it would sound if we said it one way versus said it in another way. Again, demonstrating different ways to say the same idea is one of the most important things I can do during shared writing to help kids to think about the options and the different ways that they can say the same ideas and develop that flexibility with language. Again, modeling skills and context, capitals, spacing, punctuation. These kids didn't need as much around spacing, but if that were something I was doing with kids that were at the beginning of the kindergarten year, I would be emphasizing that. And then knowing, because this was the end of the kindergarten year, these kids had a lot more stamina for writing. If it were the beginning of the year or even midway through the kindergarten year, one sentence might be all that I was writing. But because these kids had a lot of abilities with and stamina for writing, I could write a longer piece of text in front of them and model various things like capitals and spacing and punctuation. But I try and choose the skills that I'm modeling to match what kinds of things the kids are taking on in their own in writing. The other thing is modeling a lot of strategies for writing words, for getting words onto paper. As well as thinking about things like rereading. So one of the most important things I think about with kids is getting them to reread their writing so that gives them that opportunity to self-correct. Because one of the things that we know is that when readers are able to focus in on the meanings that they're making, either in reading or in writing, that rereading offers them the opportunities to catch things that they are perfectly capable of being able to fix up for themselves. So that rereading piece is really powerful. And then listening for sounds, locating words in a book and that kind of work to support that. So one of the other things that I want to talk a little bit about in our few minutes that we have left is just that opportunity for thinking about how we support kids to extend and create extensions in writing. Marie Clay tells us that really the attention to the formal properties of print and correspondence with sound segments is a final progression, a final step in the progression, not the entry point when their understanding about written language is developing. So what I wanted to think about is ways that I can bring kids back into using texts. And so some of the kinds of things might be simple retellings or using drama and getting up and acting out stories. I could have kids record the stories or make PowerPoint stories. But one of the most powerful things you can do are innovations on a text. Those could be big books, wall stories, bulletin board stories. But I want to share with you some work that some kids were doing with the book, Grandma's Favorite Things. The text looks like this, and it's a pattern text. And we see on one page, we'll see Grandpa talking, and he talks about, will we get, and he gives us different items. And then the little granddaughter says, no, let's get. And so we've got this, and it's all about all these different foods that begin with particular beginning sounds. And on each of the pages, there's a lot of alliteration. So one of my colleagues, Ann Stewart, took this book in to work with a group of students, and they were doing innovations on this text, which meant they were going to create their own text using this text as a model. So they went through a 4-step process, and I'm going to go through it quickly on this slide, but then show you slowly and talk through the work that they did. So first they began by rereading. They noticed the pattern or the rhyme scheme or the literary device. In this case, it was a literary device. You note the original writing structure, and you look at with an eye towards creating an original piece based on the book. So the first thing that Anne did was she took the book into a group of students and they reread the text, because one of the things is it may have been a text that the kids have heard a while ago, or it could be a text that, you know, is maybe only in a few days of work. But we want to always start by rereading the text. Then they began to notice the pattern. And so in this book, they were noticing that there were different items that the kids were, or that the grandpa and grandpa were shopping for. And so with the children's help, Anne began to make a shopping list. And the kids turned and they talked about the different kinds of things that they might buy, different foods, different toys for favorite things. Then they moved into thinking about this alliteration, this idea about looking at, for each of these items that you buy, there could be different words that describe it. And so they began to think about things like sizzling sausages and hot hamburgers and tiny toys. And what an amazing way of helping kids to begin to notice those initial sounds in words, because we're always talking with kids about phonics and phonemic awareness and how do we support them in seeing that in context. And so I always think of shared reading as the opportunity for me to help kids see things in context. So shared reading, shared writing, both contextualize all of this phonemic awareness and phonics work that we know is so important for kids to be able to, you know, break into text. So they created this list and then they noted the original writing structure. And so they went back to the text to check that. So again, causes kids to go in and reread. And so they noticed that on every page, Grandpa began with, and let's get, and then they began to add what was on their shopping list onto their text. And again, this gives it the opportunity to talk about punctuation. It gives the opportunity to talk about, you know, noticing the text pattern, just all kinds of things that are contextualized in this writing. So they note the writing structure of the original and begin to take their shopping list and put it into this. And so they ended up with their own book with an original piece based on the book. Kids went back in partnerships and illustrated the text, and then they were able to put it together into a book and really create something that is one of those kinds of texts that kids are going to want to go back to. So let me unpack this, this work that Anne did with the students just a little bit. So things to note about the students. They really were able to discuss options for writing as they began to talk about all the different kinds of things that they might buy at the different stores. They were building language and vocabulary as they began to talk and think, as well as attend to the text structure and think about the skills in the context of a complete text. So while they're focusing on phonics, they're actually doing it in the context of a complete text. And they were able to illustrate the story in pairs. What they've done here is create a text that's really worthy of multiple revisits, because the kids will go back to reread the stories that they have written together as a class so many times over and over. So this might be something that a teacher does, you know, once a month. It might be something a teacher does more often. It might be small groups of students who do this. It might be entire class. But one of the things that ends up being is that you're creating a collection of texts that kids absolutely love to revisit. One of the things to note is that the teacher began by rereading the text to familiarize the kids with the text, really zooming in on noticing the attention of these different literary devices. In this instance, she used, really drew their attention to the alliteration in the text. It supported them to use alliteration to generate ideas and encourage them to use the language and the text structures to help them to be able to create their own text in the model of another text that they'd seen. So one of the things that it also did was it gave Anne the opportunity to demonstrate the use of skills in the context of writing, which is one of the most powerful things that shared writing does for us. So as you support students to think about applying foundational skills, just coming back to Common Core, where they say that the foundational skills are not an end in and of themselves. They are necessary and important components of an effective, comprehensive reading, and I would put and writing program. And it's designed to help them to develop a proficiency with the capacity to comprehend text across a range of types and disciplines. So in order to read and write those different types of text is such an important piece. And shared reading, shared writing supply just the opportunities for being able to apply. So if anyone's thinking about how do you support kids to apply foundational skills, You got to have a lot of reading to, with, and by, and you've got to have a lot of writing for, with, and by. Because within the context of those two big statements, you're creating this opportunity for children to develop independence and meaning making as they think and discuss in read aloud and modeled writing, shared reading and writing, and guided reading and writing, and independent reading and writing. And all of those are built on that notion of conditions that support kids to learn. So the more that we read and write with kids in the classroom, the more reading and writing that kids are going to be involved in. And what we know is that that's what leads to the kinds of readers and writers that we want in our classrooms. Thank you so much for attending today. And we are at the end of our 3 series of writing workshop. So, on shared reading and writing. So think about the different ways that we might want to apply this information. And again, thank you for joining us. And we have a series of guided reading sessions that are going to be coming up in the spring. So we'll be giving you information about that very soon. Thank you.